increasingly, I'm seeing lots of popular backlash. So celebrities, and as we'll see in a moment, the Prime Minister of Sweden getting in trouble for even suggesting that they are using ChatGPT. We are Prime Minister Ulf Kristersson. I'm sorry if I got that wrong. I'm sure I did. I'm actually going to Sweden in a few weeks, so my Swedish viewers can tell me off when I get there. Prime Minister Ulf Kristersson uses AI services in his work as Sweden's highest decision maker. So he's the Prime Minister of Sweden, and there's a quote. This is a translated, but I think it's relatively accurate. "I use it quite often myself, if nothing else, for a second opinion. What have others done? Should we think exactly the opposite?" Those kind of questions, says the Prime Minister's. He points out there are no plans to upload political investigations, reports, motions, and decisions into language models, but the use is similar to doctors using AI to gain more perspective. So, the highest decision maker in the country of Sweden, the Prime Minister, is using ChatGPT to check his own thinking and to ask questions and to, as part of his decision making process. Now, this, I've seen a lot of backlash, especially on Reddit, with people saying it's an embarrassment. I can't believe he's leading the country. Lots of Swedish people were very annoyed about it as well. But I think he's just saying something, he's just being truthful about his usage, whereas a lot of people are doing it quietly and they're doing it on the side. I think as long as people are forced to use ChatGPT illicitly, to do it under the radar, then we're not going to get the level of education required to be able to use it properly. Because there are problems with using ChatGPT, there are problems with using generative AI. And if we don't get the right education, we're going to fall foul of those problems like hallucinations, biases, the agreeableness of these models and their tendency to agree with us. We can work around all of these things, but we need to know how to. And that's an education process. And as long as people are denying that they're even using it, as long as companies and organizations are saying you're not allowed to use it, people will continue to do so and are continuing to do so under the radar, and they're going to do it quietly, and they're not going to get better at doing it. This is the really large question here. So it sounds like the Prime Minister of Sweden is using it, probably a lot of other high government and decision makers as well, definitely people in companies. I work with an awful lot of them. And this sounds like the journalist asked a follow-up question. So they found out he uses ChatGPT. So the follow-up question, the obvious one, was, are you uploading confidential information into it? Are you putting political investigations, reports, motions, and decisions into the language models? And he said, no, we're not doing that, or I'm not doing that, which was the right answer. Whether or not that's true, we don't know, and there's no way to find out. But hopefully they're not, because there are data privacy issues that come from that, obviously. So I think we need to be a bit more open about it, because there was a report last week in America, 60% of people are using ChatGPT. So that is now the majority. This is a technology that is in its latest iteration since ChatGPT 3.5, GPT 3.5, only 2.5 years old. 60% adoption rate in 2.5 years is phenomenal. We might not, from where we're sitting right now, think of that as unusual, but compared to any other technology, that's amazing. That's much faster than the internet. The internet took a while to take hold. We need our public. We need our decision makers, like Prime Minister Ulf Kristersson. Oh, I see a Swedish person in my chat. Hey, Leila. I'm sorry if I'm saying it wrong. We need to make sure all these people have the right education to use these tools properly, because they are being used in daily life at the highest levels of government, the highest levels of corporation, and we need to make sure it's being used correctly. So yeah, there was a backlash against the Prime Minister, saying that it's concerning that he was using ChatGPT. The other one, though, at exactly the same time, in more of the popular space, is a guy called Markiplier. So chances are you either know the Prime Minister of Sweden or Markiplier. That these are very different worlds. But if you know both, fantastic. So Markiplier is a game streamer. He's been around for a long time. Like, he's one of the original people, with people like PewDiePie, who, funnily enough, is also Swedish. Markiplier is not. He's American, I believe. He recently did a live stream or skit where he was talking about almond farming. I think it was almond farming. And he asked ChatGPT about the amount of water that almond farming uses against how much water ChatGPT uses. And ChatGPT, he used the voice mode. ChatGPT said, oh, almond farming uses an awful lot more water than ChatGPT. And Markiplier was like, are you just telling me that because you're ChatGPT, etc.? It was a joke. It was a skit. However, he was basically he's gotten a lot of trouble from his fan base. There are a lot of people in his fan base who have a rabid hatred of generative AI. A lot of them, and this is from the commentary I've been reading, a lot of them are artists. So people who create illustrations, who create graphics, to whom generative AI is understandably the devil. So even him joking at the expense of ChatGPT in this skit has been enough to trigger a response coming down on him, calling him irresponsible, saying that using it like Google in this way is destroying the planet, etc., even though he was taking the mickey out of ChatGPT. So he's kicked back and he's put out a live stream saying, hang on, I'm one of the first people who called this up and said that this is a potentially dangerous technology. It's going to be used a lot of electricity. It's going to do a lot of harm. So he's pointed back to old videos of himself talking about this is a problem. And he's brought up the evidence. He's got the receipts saying, yes, I've messed around a bit in the past. We did some videos on it. We did some video thumbnails, etc., but mainly as a joke, and we haven't been using it since. And he seems to have proved his point, but people are very angry about it because he is such a public figure in that particular space, and he dared to use ChatGPT publicly. So in a weird parallel with the Prime Minister of Sweden, Markiplier, a Twitch, I'm not sure if he's on Twitch now, mainly a YouTuber, but I'm sure he's on Twitch too, has got in trouble for basically the same thing using ChatGPT. So I think what we're going to increasingly see, and this will especially be the case as AI does start to take jobs, increasingly we're going to see this kind of public backlash against anyone who even dares to use it and to publicly admit that they've used ChatGPT. But the thing is, we know from the data that the majority of people are using it out there. 60% of people in America, it is a majority and it is growing, and it is younger generations as well. So it's going to keep on increasing. So I wonder if this backlash is going to become a smaller minority or if it's going to grow and we will actually start to see the number of people using ChatGPT decreasing. I don't think so. I think what we'll probably see is, this might be brutal, but we'll probably see hypocrisy with people using it for things they think is okay and then criticizing it for things they think are not okay. So it's okay to use for medical research. Fine. It's okay to use in some of my work tasks, but you must not use it for art. You must not use it for video creation. I think we're going to start to see a demarcation in good and bad uses. I actually think that's a decent way to approach this because generative AI is a general purpose technology. It's like the internet. The things we can do with it can be good. The things we can do with it can be bad. We can build on top of the platform that is generative AI to do lots of different things. So I think we're going to start to see a split where we have to be more mindful of what we're using it for. And I think that's probably a positive thing, but that's going to require a lot of debate. It's going to require a lot of people like the Prime Minister of Sweden and Markiplier getting witch hunted for using ChatGPT until we get to the point where we're like, okay, maybe some uses are acceptable, whereas others are extremely problematic. That's going to take a while to get to, though. Shan says, who do they check as to whether GPT is being used for the right purposes? So we don't. So this is a big question: is what are good uses and what are bad uses of ChatGPT? It's not an objective answer. We can't just point to art and say, oh, that's a bad use of it. And we can't just point to creating charity reports and say that's a good use of it. It's going to be a lot more nuanced than that because it's going to depend on what we find valuable versus the ill effects of ChatGPT. And there are definitely ill effects of AI. There is the electricity cost. There is the fact that it is outsourcing a lot of our critical thinking and that people use it unthinkingly. There are multiple reasons why AI needs to be dealt with very sensitively and carefully, but we need to all personally balance out what we're using it for against the downsides. The same with any technology, honestly. It's going to be a personal choice and we need to work that out. And then cumulatively, what we think individually will stack up, and that will be how our particular societies start to think about artificial intelligence. But we need to start by thinking about it ourselves, come up with what is acceptable for us versus what is unacceptable. So for me, for example, I don't do much AI video. I've played with it. I think it's fun. I don't think it's particularly useful for my work. Therefore, that's not something that I've gone charging into. It's also, of all of the different generative AIs, it does use the most power. It's the most intensive. So that is a much bigger, it's a much heavier weight on the scale compared to text, for example, because electricity is a large problem in generative AI, and it is something that needs to be resolved and worked on. At least text uses a lot less electricity than images and video. So again, this is all going to be personal. It's going to be subjective. It's going to be about what you personally think is acceptable. But all of this comes from knowledge. So there was a post I saw on LinkedIn the other day where they put together these beautiful graphics, and they're all about how much water ChatGPT uses, and it's using the electricity of 45,000 homes, and it's just made up numbers entirely. And people were posting down below and saying, "Oh, actually, it doesn't use that much water, and where are you getting these figures from?" And then those people were getting attacked. So it just became a motive. We need to have the actual data at our fingertips so that we can make these decisions. And as long as people are fully emotional about artificial intelligence, we cannot have those discussions. So we need to move past that so we can work out the data, work out the true costs, and then we can make informed decisions. But until we calm down a bit, that's going to be impossible. And people are just going to argue from emotion first. Gandalf the Green says, what are your concerns around AI? There are plenty. So I think, gosh, so electricity is the big one. Water is not. Water is a red herring. But electricity usage is a big one. So the global IT uses about 1.5 to 2% of the world's electricity right now, which is small, but that is set to potentially double in the next 5 years or so because of generative AI, mainly to do with training. It's not really inference. It's not us asking ChatGPT and ChatGPT sending us responses. It's the training that uses a huge amount of energy. There's also the energy in creating the GPUs, the semiconductors, powering the data centers, et cetera, is a huge amount of electricity. However, it behooves the companies creating generative AI to reduce those costs because their main cost base is electricity. So their profit incentive is actually aligned with the good of the planet. This is why various generative AI companies are looking at nuclear power and acquiring or building nuclear power stations. And they're always trying to make their algorithms more efficient to use less electricity, because by doing so, they drive down the cost. This is not out of the goodness of their heart. They will wrap it up like that. They'll put out reports about how green they are, about how they're carbon neutral. That's not why they're doing it. They're doing it because they make more money. They make more money if their electricity costs are lower. But thankfully, that is aligned with better environmental practices. But we still need to remember that even if AI is taking up 4 or 5% of the world's electricity, that's only 5%. There is a huge amount of other stuff out there which is not being focused on right now because it's not the hot topic. But in terms of the negatives, yeah, there's definitely power. There is the fact that it does allow us to turn off our brains. We can use it as a co-intelligence. We can use it to leverage our intelligence. A lot of people are not. They are just abdicating all responsibility to AI and not having to think. So that's going to be a problem. I think companionship is also AI companionship could be a great thing because it could help decrease loneliness by giving people an AI companion. But at the same time, it's going to decrease those people's ability to interface with, interact with, and build actual human relationships. So I think in the next decade or so, that's probably a Trojan horse, which is going to creep in. 16% of Americans are using AI for companionship, and that raises to 25% when it's the young adults, so between 18 and 29. And I think it's going to be more than 25% under 18. We just don't have the figures for it. But character AI, which is a companionship-based AI, is number 3 globally. It's ChatGPT, DeepSeek, character AI. So this is a huge usage of artificial intelligence. I think that's going to lead to problems in the future. We have problems with incels right now. I think companion AIs could push us even further down that particular rabbit hole. So there are could keep going on, multiple negative aspects of artificial intelligence. There are also, as you can probably guess, I'm pro AI, many wonderful things that we can do with it as well, but we need to be aware of both sides. And I think too few people are. Most people will be all in 100% positive AI and they won't hear anything bad against it. And then there are people on the other side who are all in negative and won't hear anything good about it. In reality, life is boring and things tend to be gray and in the middle somewhere and more complicated. And unfortunately, that's just how the world is. Everything is a bit more gray and less black and white. So we just need to be aware of that.